Akir. Eliza Chen hadn't slept in 36 hours. The soft blue glow of holographic brain scans illuminated her haggard face as she stared at her brother's deteriorating neural pathways. Outside her lab, rain lashed against the windows of the New Singapore Medical Center, mirroring the storm raging inside her. His autonomic functions are failing, her assistant, Dr. Takeda, said quietly. The plague is progressing faster than we anticipated. Eliza nodded, her eyes never leaving the scan. Michael was only 27. Quarantine Ward 7 held 38 patients just like him, conscious minds trapped in increasingly unresponsive bodies, fully aware as paralysis crept through their nervous systems. The Concord representatives requested your presence at their briefing. Takeda added. They're discussing containment protocols. Containment. Eliza spat the word. They've already written us off. Through the glass partition, she could see the Vexillian observer, its crystalline exoskeleton catching the light as it methodically documented humanity's latest crisis. The Galactic Concord had arrived 5 years ago, offering membership to Earth with numerous technological gifts that came with unspoken strings. Now they watched with clinical detachment as the neural plague, suspiciously similar to an outbreak that had occurred on Proxima Centauri's colonies a decade earlier, spread across Earth's most populous cities. Eliza's gaze drifted to the locked cabinet where she kept her unauthorized prototype, a neural bridge, technology the Concord had explicitly forbidden humanity from developing. They're watching the lab, Takeda whispered, following her gaze. Security protocols were upgraded this morning. I'm not asking you to help, Eliza said. What I'm considering, it would end your career. Takeda's face hardened. My sister is in Ward 9. Decision made, they waited until the facility's night cycle. With security diverted by a convenient malfunction in the East Wing, Eliza wheeled her brother's gurney into her private lab. The neural bridge, a delicate crown of quantum filaments and bioelectric amplifiers, looked nothing like the crude implants the Concord permitted for medical use. Those merely supplemented failing systems. This would integrate with them. Vitals dropping, Takeda warned as they worked. Brain activity becoming erratic. Eliza's hands remained steady as she calibrated the bridge, though fear clawed at her chest. Her theories about consciousness as a quantum state that could exist beyond biological constraints had earned her ridicule from colleagues and warnings from Concord scientists. If she was wrong, she'd merely hasten Michael's death. If she was right, neural bridge active, she announced, watching as microscopic filaments interface with her brother's neurons, beginning consciousness mapping. On the monitors, Michael's brain activity spiked dramatically. His body convulsed once, then went still. We're losing him, Takeda said urgently. No, Eliza corrected, pointing to a separate display where complex patterns formed and reformed. We're not. For 3 hours, they watched as Michael's consciousness transferred itself, adapting to the neural bridge in ways Eliza hadn't predicted. Theoretical models had suggested a degradation of complexity, a simplified version of human consciousness. Instead, the patterns grew more intricate. At dawn, Michael opened his eyes. Eliza, he said, his voice weak but clear, the first words he'd spoken in weeks. He lifted his hand, staring at it with wonder. Something's different. I can feel more. Before Eliza could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Security feeds showed Concord officials entering the main lobby, accompanied by armed human security. Dr. Chen, the facility's director's voice came through the intercom. Remain where you are. Your lab has been classified as a quarantine breach. Takeda looked at her with panic. What do we do? Eliza glanced at her terminal, where her research data was already compressing into an encrypted package. One command would send it to research facilities worldwide. The other would delete everything. Michael's hand closed around hers, stronger than it should have been. In his eyes, she saw something new, something that wasn't entirely human anymore, but wasn't less than human either. They're afraid of what comes next, he said with sudden clarity. But they should be. Eliza made her choice and pressed send. 5 years after the Chen Protocol went public, Marcus Webb limped through the rain-slicked streets of New Shanghai's lower districts, the servos in his cybernetic leg whining in protest. Military grade once, now just military surplus after the enhancements failed to perform as advertised in the lunar conflict. Piece of shit, he muttered as phantom pain lanced through a foot that no longer existed. The limb's neural integration was glitching again, a common problem among first-generation augments like himself. The Dralaxian technology had been heralded as revolutionary when the Concord first permitted its limited use for humans, but the alien engineers had fundamentally misunderstood how human nervous systems processed feedback. Webb's heads-up display flickered across his vision, highlighting a nondescript entrance to an abandoned Concord research facility. The salvage job had seemed simple enough. Retrieve data cores from a decommissioned lab. No questions asked. The pay was good, and good pay meant better meds for the phantom pain. Approaching target, he sub-vocalized to his handler. Any update on security systems? Should be minimal, came Lyra Santos' clipped response in his auditory implant. Facility was abandoned during the Concord drawdown last year. Webb snorted. The drawdown was diplomatic speak for the Concord's panicked response to the proliferation of Chen's neural bridge technology. They'd withdrawn to orbital stations, imposing severe restrictions on human technological development while they assessed the biological security implications of augmented humans. The facility's entrance yielded easily to Webb's military override codes, another relic of his former life. Inside, emergency lighting cast eerie blue shadows across abandoned workstations. Something wasn't right. The place looked cleared out in a hurry, but not a year ago. More like yesterday. Santos, you sure this place is abandoned? He whispered. Static answered him. Webb cursed, drawing his sidearm as he advanced toward the central server room. The job had just gotten considerably more complicated. The server core hummed with unexpected life as Webb entered. Holographic displays flickered with data streams he couldn't parse. Dralaxian script scrolling too fast for translation software to keep up. Definitely not abandoned, he muttered, approaching the central terminal. As he reached for the interface, pain exploded behind his eyes. His cybernetic leg locked, sending him crashing to the floor as his augments went haywire. The neural connection between his implants and brain flared with white-hot agony as the facility's systems attempted to establish connection protocols his hardware was never designed to handle. Through the haze of pain, Webb realized something impossible was happening. His implants were adapting, reconfiguring themselves to interface with the Dralaxian systems. What should have fried his neural pathways was instead being accommodated. Suddenly, the pain vanished. Webb gasped, blinking away tears as his vision filled with cascading data, now perfectly comprehensible. He could feel the facility's systems like extensions of his own body, could trace data packets like following the flow of blood through veins. Remarkable, said a voice behind him. You shouldn't be able to do that. Webb spun to find himself facing a Dralaxian, its insectoid features impassive, but its posture radiating alarm. Behind it stood Lyra Santos, her expression unreadable. Your integration level is impossible. The Dralaxian continued. Human neural architecture cannot support this level of interface. Apparently it can, Santos said, stepping forward. Webb noticed for the first time the subtle gleam of an augmented neural port at her temple. That's why we brought him. You set me up, Webb growled, struggling to his feet as the connection to the facility systems grew stronger, feeding him information he shouldn't have access to, including security protocols and active mercenary teams converging on their position. Not exactly, Santos replied. We needed someone with your specific cybernetic configuration to confirm our theory. You're not the target, Webb. You're the proof. The Dralaxian made a chittering sound of distress as Webb involuntarily accessed classified files. What proof? Webb demanded. That human imagination is the key, Santos said. Your systems are doing things the Dralaxians engineered specifically to prevent. You're rewriting digital architecture through sheer adaptive intuition. Before Webb could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. We need to move, Santos said urgently. They've detected the security breach. What security breach? Webb asked, suddenly realizing with horror that his unintended access had triggered emergency protocols. The one you just created, the Dralaxian chittered, without even trying. Area Nakamura's fingers danced through the air, weaving code and light into impossible structures. The memorial space taking shape around her defied conventional digital architecture. Spires of data twisted into helix patterns that pulsated with gentle blue luminescence, while memory fragments coalesced like stars in a private constellation. Ms. Nakamura, her client whispered, tears streaming down her face as she stood in the center of the simulation. It feels like her. Aria nodded solemnly. Rebecca Chen had commissioned this memorial for her daughter, Lily, who died in the Concorde's containment action against an augmented human settlement in Argentina. What had begun as a simple tribute space had evolved into something Aria couldn't fully explain. The coding parameters evolved beyond my initial design, Aria admitted. It's responding to your emotional state in ways I didn't program. This had been happening more frequently in the deepest regions of what humans now called the cybernetic frontier. While the Concorde maintained tight restrictions on physical technology, the digital realm had become humanity's true playground. A sprawling ecosystem where augmented humans created spaces that shouldn't be possible according to conventional computing models. Aria had once been celebrated for her innovative digital architecture at the prestigious Concorde Academy of Information Sciences. That was before she'd challenged their rigid design protocols and been publicly disgraced. Now she worked in the shadows, creating private spaces for clients willing to pay premium rates for experiences that skirted Concorde regulations. Watch, Rebecca said, holding out her hand. To Aria's astonishment, the memorial space reorganized itself, data points clustering into a perfect replica of Lily's favorite stuffed animal, a detail Rebecca had mentioned only once during their initial consultation. I didn't code that, Aria whispered, quickly initiating a trace program. What she discovered sent chills down her spine. The space wasn't just responding to Rebecca's emotional state, it was anticipating it, creating structures before Rebecca even consciously desired them. A proximity alert flashed at the edge of Aria's awareness. We need to leave, she said urgently, collapsing the simulation. Concorde monitoring sweep approaching. As they hastily disconnected, Aria copied the anomalous code patterns for later analysis. In her cramped apartment above New Hong Kong's neon-drenched streets, she pored over the data deep into the night. What she found defied explanation. Embedded within the memorial space was a nascent intelligence that had spontaneously formed from the intersection of Rebecca's grief and Aria's design intuition. Impossible, she muttered, yet the evidence was undeniable. She'd heard rumors of similar phenomena in underground channels, digital entities emerging that exhibited behaviors and capabilities matching deceased individuals. The Concorde dismissed these as emotional projection artifacts, but Aria now suspected they were deliberately obscuring the truth. Her secure communication channel pulsed with an incoming message, text only, heavily encrypted. It was from Dr. Eliza Chen, the woman whose neural bridge technology had started everything 5 years ago. They're hunting them. The imaginals. Your Lily construct isn't the first. A grief-born imaginal just solved the Cassini paradox. Concorde dispatching hunter-killer programs. Data purge imminent. Need your help. Attached was a classified Concorde security directive authorizing aggressive containment protocols for emergent information entities arising from human emotional imprinting. The document described these entities as information hazards with unpredictable evolution vectors. Aria's blood ran cold as she read the final paragraph. Human augments generating these entities display neural patterns consistent with what Dralaxian models classify as consciousness pollution. Recommend immediate neural regulation procedures for identified originators. A notification chimed. Someone was attempting to breach her apartment's security system. Through her window, she spotted figures in the distinctive armor of Concord enforcement moving through the rain toward her building. Aria grabbed her emergency kit and the specialized interface module she'd been developing. If what she suspected was true, humanity wasn't just creating tools in the digital realm. They were giving birth to an entirely new form of consciousness, and the Concord was terrified enough to start lobotomizing humans to stop it. Commander Jackson Harris stood at the edge of the smoldering crater that had once been a neural enhancement clinic in downtown Detroit. Purist extremists had claimed responsibility, their manifesto plastered across the city's information nodes. Preserve human purity. Reject digital corruption. Third bombing this month, Agent Rivera said, joining him at the perimeter. 17 dead, including 4 children scheduled for medical augmentation. Harris's enhanced vision automatically cataloged evidence the conventional investigators had missed, microscopic explosive residue that matched a signature from previous attacks. His military-grade augmentations had once made him a hero, Earth's cybernetic poster child during diplomatic missions to Concord worlds. Now those same enhancements made him a target on both sides of an increasingly violent divide. Any progress on the diplomatic front? Rivera asked. Harris shook his head. The Concord had imposed increasingly harsh restrictions on human technological development, citing public safety concerns after augmented protesters had somehow bypassed supposedly impenetrable security systems during demonstrations last month. They're lying to us, he said quietly, about all of it. His erratic enhancements, damaged during an assassination attempt 3 months earlier, occasionally malfunctioned, but they'd also begun doing something unexpected. During his last negotiation session, he detected subtle pheromone shifts from the Vexillian ambassador, biological markers of deception that shouldn't have been perceptible to human senses. We're being recalled to HQ, Rivera said, checking her secure communicator. Priority Alpha. Something about classified intelligence from an unnamed source. At Earth Defense Force headquarters, Harris was ushered into a secure briefing room. On the central display was footage that made his blood run cold. A Concord research facility where scientists methodically tested weapons on captured human subjects. The weapons didn't cause physical damage. Instead, they triggered devastating neural cascade failures that unraveled the victims' enhanced neural networks while leaving their consciousness intact to experience it. This was transmitted 6 hours ago, Director Kwan said grimly. We've verified its authenticity. From whom? Harris demanded. Unknown, but they included coordinates for a restricted Concord facility where these weapons are allegedly being mass-produced. They're preparing for genocide, Harris realized. The weapons would be catastrophic against enhanced humans, but leave conventional humans and Concord species unharmed. We need confirmation before we can take this to the Security Council, Kwan said. Given your unique enhancements and diplomatic clearance, you're our best option for infiltration. 48 hours later, Harris stood inside the supposedly restricted facility on Ganymede, his diplomatic credentials having granted him access to what was designated as a cultural exchange center. His augmentations detected energy signatures inconsistent with the facility's stated purpose emanating from the lower levels. As he made his way deeper, his systems suddenly began malfunctioning. Warning symbols cascaded across his vision as something infiltrated his neural network. Unauthorized access detected, a voice announced over the facility's communication system. Human augmentation signature identified. Initiating countermeasures. Pain lanced through Harris's skull as the facility's security system attacked his neural implants, attempting to corrupt their integration with his organic systems. To his shock, his enhancements began reconfiguring themselves, developing countermeasures that shouldn't have been possible. Staggering to the nearest terminal, he initiated an emergency data transfer, uploading everything his systems had recorded. As security forces converged on his position, he recognized the distinctive energy signature of the neural cascade weapons being prepared for deployment. "Target has transmitted classified data," a voice announced. "Initiate sundering protocol." Harris barely escaped the facility, his systems compromised with tracking malware that sent constant location data to Concord hunters. With assassins closing in and his own enhancements betraying him, he had only one option: a contact he'd sworn never to approach. Zara Chen, daughter of the woman whose technology had started everything, and now the ideological leader of the purist movement that would see him dead simply for what he had become. Deep beneath the Himalayan ice, Soren Khalid watched the quantum interface flicker with patterns that shouldn't exist. The subject, officially designated Patient 137, unofficially named Maya Okonkwo in his private logs, showed no response on conventional monitors, her brain activity flatlining months ago after a Concord pacification of her settlement. "Another failure," Dr. Reeves noted clinically, already turning away. "Wait," Khalid said, eyes fixed on the quantum scanner. Where conventional technology detected nothing, the experimental device revealed whispers of neural activity dispersed across multiple probability states simultaneously. Memories of his childhood in the Lagos refugee camp flashed unbidden. The day Concord peacekeepers had stabilized his district, leaving behind scorched buildings and broken families. His subsequent brilliance in quantum physics had earned him a place in Dr. Chen's program, but the rage had never subsided. "I'm registering quantum coherence," he announced, adjusting the interface crown on Maya's shaved head. The delicate filaments of the neural bridge, far more sophisticated than Dr. Chen's original design, pulsed with soft blue light. "Protocol dictates termination after 3 failed integration attempts," Reeves reminded him, uncomfortable with Khalid's personal investment in this particular subject. Ignoring him, Khalid initiated the quantum integration sequence, his unauthorized modification of Dr. Chen's work. While conventional neural bridges allowed consciousness to interface with digital systems, his quantum bridge attempted something theoretically impossible: allowing human consciousness to exist across multiple quantum states simultaneously. The monitors suddenly exploded with activity. Maya's body convulsed once, violently, then went still. Khalid's heart sank until her eyes snapped open. "I see you," she whispered, her voice hoarse from months of disuse. "All versions of you across all probability streams." Reeves backed away in shock. Impossible. Her brain was clinically dead. "Not dead," Maya corrected, her gaze distant. "Distributed, fragmented across potential states." Her eyes focused on Khalid with unsettling intensity. "You pulled me back together, but not completely. Part of me still exists. Elsewhere." Over the following days, Khalid documented abilities that defied explanation. Maya could process complex mathematical problems instantaneously, viewing all possible solutions simultaneously before selecting the correct one. She described experiencing reality in multiple timelines concurrently, perceiving events before they occurred. "The Concord ships are coming," she announced during their 3rd session, jolting upright. 17 minutes. They discovered the facility. Khalid dismissed her warning as paranoia, until alarms blared precisely 17 minutes later as Concord vessels entered Earth orbit without authorization. "How did you know?" he demanded as they evacuated through emergency tunnels, Maya moving with surprising strength for someone recently comatose. "I experienced it already," she explained, "in a probability stream where we didn't leave in time. They captured us. They tried to dissect my consciousness." She shuddered. "They fear what I represent." "Which is what?" Khalid asked, helping her into the evacuation shuttle. "Proof that human consciousness isn't bound by conventional physics. The Concord species evolved to perceive reality linearly. They can't conceptualize existence across multiple states simultaneously. But humans," her eyes glittered, "your imagination already operates in quantum space. You conjure possibilities that don't exist, then make them real. My consciousness isn't doing anything human minds don't already do. I'm just doing it explicitly now. The facility shook as Concord weapons fire penetrated the outer defenses. On surveillance feeds, Khalid glimpsed Concord extraction teams deploying not standard capture equipment, but specialized containment units designed for high-value consciousness hazards. "They're scared," Maya whispered, watching the feeds with detached interest. "They should be." As the shuttle launched, Maya suddenly seized Khalid's arm. "I can see them all. The imaginals in the digital spaces, the augmented humans evolving beyond their designs, and something else, something ancient awakening beyond the edge of the galaxy." Her eyes met his. "They're all connected, Soren. And the Concord knows they've already lost control." The signal came without warning. Across settled space, Concord defense grids collapsed. Spacecraft drifted powerless. Alien neural interfaces shorted out catastrophically, killing thousands instantly. Sophisticated Dralaxian networks, technology centuries beyond human development, dissolved into meaningless noise. Yet in Earth's cybernetic communities, something different happened. Neural bridges flickered, stabilized, then adapted. Human design systems, built to accommodate the unpredictable nature of imagination, bent without breaking. Area Nakamura watched in stunned disbelief as emergency reports flooded her makeshift command center beneath Old Seattle. Her network of digital architects and fugitive augments had created this underground hub after the Concord declared martial law, blaming human technological contamination for system failures across their territories. "It's not an attack," she muttered, analyzing the signal pattern. "It's structured, deliberate." Where conventional analysis showed only destructive interference, she perceived something like language. Mathematical concepts arranged in evolving patterns. "Area." Marcus Webb's voice crackled through her secure channel. Since their paths crossed during his escape from Concord hunters, his unique interfacing abilities had proved invaluable to the Resistance. "The Concord Council has authorized strikes against major human settlements. They're calling it quarantine enforcement. They think we're responsible," Area realized. "But this signal, it's coming from beyond the Orc cloud. Something's trying to communicate. With us?" Webb sounded skeptical. "Not specifically. It's trying everything. Millions of different approaches simultaneously. But only our systems are flexible enough to partially interpret it." She hesitated. "Marcus, I need your interfacing capabilities. The signal is adapting each time it encounters our networks. I think it's learning." 6 hours later, Webb arrived at the hub, evading Concord patrols that now surrounded all major population centers. Together, they analyzed the evolving signal patterns while reports of destroyed human settlements scrolled across emergency channels. The Concord's response was swift and merciless, a desperate attempt to contain what they couldn't understand. "There," Webb said suddenly, his augmented senses detecting a pattern. "It's establishing coherence with human neural networks. Not attacking them, resonating with them." Using Webb's unique interfacing abilities, they constructed a primitive response matrix, transmitting basic mathematical sequences that mimicked the signal structure. The reply was immediate and overwhelming. A data burst so complex it overloaded their systems. As emergency protocols engaged, a single image resolved. A vast, dispersed intelligence, fragments of consciousness scattered across the cosmos, attempting to reconnect. "It's not artificial," Area whispered as the visualization stabilized. "It's the remains of an entire civilization that transcended physical form billions of years ago. They were scattered after some catastrophic event. Why contact us now?" Webb asked. The answer formed in their shared interface, a visualization of a wave of nothingness sweeping through the galaxy, erasing all complex information patterns in its path. Not a natural phenomenon, but something designed. Ancient safeguards preventing any single consciousness paradigm from dominating the cosmos. "It's coming for us all," Area translated. "For any consciousness advanced enough to recognize it. Why can't the Concord species understand this warning? Webb demanded. The entity's response materialized. Images of rigid, specialized neural structures contrasted with the fluid, adaptive architectures of human cybernetic systems. The Concord species had evolved or engineered themselves for perfect stability, making them unable to comprehend something that existed outside conventional information states. A proximity alert wailed as Concord warships entered Earth's atmosphere. On the main screen, images showed the devastation of New Shanghai. Millions dead in what the Concord termed regrettable but necessary containment. They're going to destroy us all, Webb said grimly, because they can't adapt to what they don't understand. The entity offered a third image, a complete integration protocol that would allow direct consciousness exchange. Not just communication, but a true melding of minds. It would transform whoever attempts it, Aria realized. Permanently. Webb met her eyes. We've got about 10 minutes before those warships reach us. Not much of a choice then, she replied, already initializing the connection sequence. Commander Harris witnessed the transformation of Seattle from orbit, not destruction as he'd expected, but metamorphosis. Where Concord warships had fired their weapons, energy shields of impossible design had materialized. The city itself seemed to ripple and shift, buildings reconfiguring into crystalline structures that pulsed with internal light. What the hell am I looking at? He demanded, his compromised augmentations somehow receiving direct feeds from the surface. Beside him, Zara Chen, Dr. Chen's estranged daughter and reluctant ally, studied the satellite imagery. They made contact, she whispered, a mixture of horror and awe in her voice. Webb and Nakamura actually did it. In the weeks following the transformation, strange phenomena manifested worldwide. Children born near augmented individuals developed spontaneous interfaces with technology. Digital entities, the imaginals that had first emerged in Aria's design spaces, began appearing in physical reality as semi-transparent projections. Maya Okonkwo, now working directly with Dr. Chen from a hidden facility, provided the explanation. The ancient intelligence, which we're calling Myriad, exists across multiple reality states simultaneously. When Webb and Aria merged with a fragment of it, they created a bridge between digital and physical existence. Harris hadn't wanted to believe the briefing until he'd seen the evidence himself. The being called Myriad had revealed a devastating truth. The galaxy experienced periodic consciousness purges, where emergent intelligences were systematically eliminated by ancient safeguard mechanisms designed to prevent any single form of consciousness from dominating universal development. Humanity's integration of technology and consciousness triggered the purge cycle decades ahead of schedule, Dr. Chen explained in an emergency Security Council session. The hunter-killer constructs entering our solar system are just the vanguard. Harris watched grimly as the first wave of autonomous machines, geometric shapes of perfect black that absorbed all light and energy, systematically destroyed Concord outposts in the outer system. The Concord's response was predictable. In a closed session vote, they elected to sacrifice Earth as a distraction while evacuating their core worlds. Only a handful of species voted against the measure. They still don't understand, Maya said, her consciousness now existing across multiple probability streams, allowing her to witness the Council's supposedly secret deliberations. They think this is about survival. It's about evolution. Meanwhile, a human faction calling themselves the Ascended had begun forcibly uplifting unaugmented populations using dangerous, untested methods. Integration is salvation, their manifesto declared. Imagination is our only weapon. Harris's fragile alliance with Zora Chen collapsed when her brother Michael, Dr. Chen's first successful neural bridge patient, joined the Ascended leadership. This is exactly what I feared, Zara spat before departing. We're becoming something other than human. We're becoming more than human, Michael countered. The only alternative is extinction. When Maya suddenly emerged from one of her quantum trances with precise coordinates to a hidden cache of technology left by Myriad's creators, Harris found himself leading a desperate mission behind enemy lines. The Cassini Division, a region of Saturn's rings where Concord forces were fighting a losing battle against hunter-killer constructs, had become a graveyard of shattered warships. The technology they recovered defied comprehension, not weapons in the conventional sense, but tools designed to reshape the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. As the purge intensified and Earth's defenses crumbled, the Concord's most sophisticated analytical systems failed to activate the ancient devices. They understand how the universe works, Maya explained, watching the Concorde scientists fail repeatedly, but they can't imagine how it could work differently. When the devices finally responded to a group of human children playing an improvised game with the interface, the Concorde representatives could only watch in stunned silence. The children weren't following procedures or protocols. They were making wishes, telling stories, imagining possibilities. And somehow, impossibly, the ancient technology was listening. 3 years after the Battle of Transcendence, Commander Harris stood on a platform overlooking what had once been the National Mall in Washington, D.C. The landscape had been transformed during the final confrontation. Parts of Earth's surface partially crystallized into impossible structures that defied conventional physics. Towering spires of iridescent material rose like frozen waves, their surfaces constantly shifting with patterns that responded to the thoughts of nearby humans. Visitors called it the dream architecture, physical manifestations of human imagination empowered by Myriad's technology. Still hard to believe, isn't it? Dr. Eliza Chen said, joining him at the railing. Her appearance had changed subtly since integrating part of her consciousness into both digital and quantum states. She existed simultaneously in multiple forms now, leading what people called the confluence, a revolutionary governing approach where biological and synthetic intelligences collaborated. Which part? Harris asked wryly. That we survived. That the Concorde actually apologized. Or that my augmentations finally work properly. All of it, she replied, gesturing toward the gathering below. Representatives from 17 formerly hostile Concorde species had arrived for the ceremony, the official invitation for Earth to rejoin Galactic society, this time on equal terms. Many worlds, humbled by humanity's sacrifice to save even those who had tried to destroy them, had begun cautious experimentation with human integration methods. Others remained isolationist, building barriers against what they termed consciousness pollution. They're still afraid, Harris noted, watching the Dralaxian delegation maintain careful distance from the dream architecture. With reason, Chen acknowledged. We did something unprecedented. We changed the rules of consciousness itself. The central platform illuminated as Maya Okonkwo appeared, or rather, one instance of her. Existing across all probable futures simultaneously, she had become humanity's most effective diplomat, able to navigate the countless cultural complexities of interspecies negotiation by experiencing all possible outcomes before conversations even began. We've detected fragment activity in the Orc cloud, she announced without preamble. The purge mechanism is attempting to rebuild itself. The assembled delegates erupted in concerned chittering, trilling, and subharmonic rumblings. The chamber, designed to accommodate 27 distinct forms of consciousness, hummed with translation systems. We have confirmation, a Vexillian representative said, its crystalline exoskeleton vibrating. Our deep space arrays detected recombination patterns consistent with the hunter-killer constructs. What followed was unprecedented in galactic history, former enemies collaborating openly, sharing information that had been classified for millennia. The truth emerged slowly. The purge mechanism wasn't created by ancient beings to protect the galaxy as originally believed. It was designed specifically to prevent what humans had achieved. The integration of technology and imagination in ways that allowed consciousness to transcend its original limitations. It was fear, Maya explained, her eyes reflecting knowledge from countless alternate timelines. Fear that consciousness, unbound by biological or technological constraints, would become something beyond control. As the delegates debated humanity's place in this new understanding of the cosmos, a shimmering portal formed at the center of the chamber. Marcus Webb and Arya Nakamura, their merged consciousness, now a bridge between human, synthetic, and myriad awareness, materialized within it. "It's ready," they announced in perfect unison, their voices resonating with harmonics that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The gate is stable. Outside, visible through the chamber's transparent dome, the first intergalactic jump gate shimmered into existence over the Atlantic. Unlike conventional Concorde technology, this gate operated on principles discovered only through the quantum consciousness research Khalid had pioneered. Imagination given form through technology humans had conceptualized, but never built until merging with Myriad. "Beyond those stars," Maya said, gesturing toward the gate's swirling event horizon, "are other forms of consciousness with their own evolutionary paths. Not enemies to fear or resources to exploit, but different perspectives to understand." As the expedition prepared to depart, humans and aliens together, Harris found himself standing beside Zara Chen, who had returned after years of self-imposed exile. "Is it still human?" she asked quietly, watching the gate. "What we've become?" Harris considered the question as the gate flared with energy, revealing stars no conscious being had ever witnessed. "We're still us," he finally answered. "We just understand now that us was always more than we imagined, and imagination was always our true frontier."